So, what seems to be the problem?
I have people in my head,
Oh.
like original characters,
Oh!
and they're complaining.
That's,
I mean, I get it, honestly, it's really quite cramped up there in my noggin. Like, canonically, I'm 2 inches tall, there's really not a lot of room up in my bug brain.
I don't know. Make a comic with them or something. You know, I'm not really qualified for this. Are you sure you came to the right place?
Yeah, of course, you're a bug doctor.
I mean, I got my PhD in entomology, but giving life advice to bugs, it's a little bit out of my area of expertise.
Then what did you even study in school? Like, what? What was your thesis about?
Consuming insects, a history of edible bugs.
Oh, not again! I did it! I finally started my comic. It only took, 3 years. I think that as soon as I realized OCs were a thing, I was always dreaming of bringing my ideas to life, in some way or another. Mostly through animation, but you know, that takes so much time if you're doing your projects on your own. So logically, I decided to embrace the notoriously quick process of comic making. I'm being silly, but it's still way faster than making an animated show all by yourself. Still, it's not an easy process. I counted my failed comic attempts and there's 4 of them. The furthest I've ever gotten was 8 pages. On 2 different occasions. I clearly had a desire to make stories, but what really prevented me from realizing them to the end? Looking back into the far, far past of 4 years ago, I think it was mostly a crippling art insecurity, which I've definitely gotten better at managing now. My taste in art grew way faster than my skill. So I was disappointed with my art. I believe this is a common occurrence among artists. You may think getting better at art is the solution to this problem, but I think it's actually all about your mindset. You just gotta be less harsh on yourself. It's for sure easier said than done, but that's life for you. Not that I would know. I'm a bug. I was born 3 days ago. Art is supposed to be fun. Besides that, another thing that held me back was a lack of preparation. By that, I mean that I didn't plan out my stories properly. I didn't write scripts that were detailed enough, I didn't do thumbnails, didn't do much world building, and the list goes on. Due to this lack of preparation, I would get overwhelmed by the process, cause now instead of just drawing whatever was written in the script, using references I made, I had to decide on the dialogue, the story, the designs, and the background all at the same time, which understandably burned me out. 4 times to be exact. So when I decided to start my latest comic, Paradise Take Back, I knew I had to do things differently. I used the knowledge from my previous projects to hopefully make it past 8 pages. That being said, I still made a lot of mistakes, which I'll talk about later. At this point, I'm certain you're gnawing on the bars of your enclosure, wanting to know what my comic is actually about. So, I guess I'll tell you. Whatever. I don't even care. Ugh. It all started when I heard a song from insanely cool artist Spectre's demo album from 2021, which is no longer available. It was a 20-second snippet of a song titled The Fool, and so I did the thing that all character artists do and imagined an animation in my head, along with lore for a potential character based on the song. This guy's name is Quackembush. He never actually ends up being used, but he's the original one, the first character in the Paradise Take Back universe. His lore was that he cursed the royal family for generations after being decapitated. And you know what? Fair. Over the past 3 years, the story has evolved and changed drastically. My first version had to do with death and reincarnation, and the murder of my protagonist's entire family as an inciting incident, which, you know, could work. But I dropped it because it was too edgy for the story I wanted to tell. My second version was a bit tamer, but the world lacked a lot of interest, since it was basically the same as Earth, but with fantasy powers that weren't reflected in the world building. For the last and current version of the story, I overhauled everything. I put a lot of emphasis on the world defining the way society worked, even if it wasn't relevant to the plot. I also changed the location of the story from a regular country to a massive tree. For context, the main factor that differentiates our world from the world of Paradise Take Back is the existence of these magical objects called relics. This is the power system of the world. Relics can have a myriad of different uses, from combat to general utility. Their effects can be straightforward or more conceptual in nature. The entire story revolves around getting a relic that transports you to paradise. I wanted to make the existence of relics felt, even even when they're not on screen. For example, the massive tree. It exists due to a relic that creates megaflora. The vast sea of acid surrounding the tree was made by the Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, someone turned the world's oceans to aqua rage, yeah. Both of these relics aren't plot relevant, but they make the world feel more lived in and interesting. I also thought that with such insane powers, there would be regulations and law enforcement policing the use of relics. So, I made it a big part of my story. Moving on to actually creating the comic, I'll talk about some concrete aspects of my workflow. For general ideas, concepts, and outlines, I always use Google Keep. All of my notes and brainstorming goes in there. And my shopping lists, descriptions of dreams I had, unhinged venting, and this isn't relevant. I used the Miro board for a second, but I found that text notes were enough for me. I made an outline of the story entirely in the ridges of my brain, and had the ending in mind from the very beginning, so I can do foreshadowing and build up a satisfying narrative. Initially, there were 7 arcs, but I cut it down to 5 to take off like a year or 3 from the total time it takes me to finish the comic. It's still going to take like 10 years, but it's something! When I finally had my ideas in order, I used Kit Scenarist to write my comic. It's a free program for writing scripts, and wow, what a godsend. I used an online site for scripts before, but it ran horribly. Out of all the script writing programs that I've tried, Scenarist runs very smoothly, even with my laughably low specs. It has great formatting for writing scenes, dialogue, shots, etc. I'm even using it to script this video right now. After I finished writing the first arc of my story, I sent it to my unpaid friends to read it for free, no money, and give me critiques. Then I'd go back and make another draft with the suggestions I got. The script is finished! Yay! Now it's time to make thumbnails. These are smaller versions of the comic pages to get a general idea of the layout. I sketch them first in my sketchbook, and then I draw them in Clip Studio Paint. I made them insanely loose, cause only I have to understand what's drawn there. And I only struggle to decipher my scribbles like twice. Yeah, okay. A thing I learned from the process is that I should actually put more thought in my compositions instead of banging them out as quickly as possible. Like, I definitely have some cool layouts here and there, but there's still a lot of room to improve, especially in terms of clarity of action in the first pages. A lot of these skills will also come with time and experience, so I just gotta keep at it. Then came time to do proper reference sheets. To be honest, I didn't really enjoy this process, and it showed in my sheets, because they're very messy, which is the opposite of what you want from something you are constantly referencing. This was most severe with my backgrounds, because I just don't like drawing backgrounds as much as other stuff. I made some half-baked sketches of buildings and interiors, basically making future me do more work. Moving forward, I will for sure make better reference sheets and properly design the environments. I think I don't like drawing backgrounds mostly because I'm not very good at it. So hopefully as I get better, the process will be more enjoyable. Now, when it comes to the character reference sheets, I made the mistake of designing my characters in color first, when the comic is literally in black and white. So there was much deliberation of what colors to leave as white, what colors to turn black, and how many shades of gray should I use. It was really quite a headache, cause I think I went and changed the colors, or I guess tones of my main character 4 times as I was drawing the comic. Anyways, fonts. When thinking of what font I'd use for my comic, I was very inspired by the lettering on the Fresh Meat and Catharsis comics by Nobody on Comic Fury. So I decided to make my own font. It's really nothing complicated. I just drew the letters by hand in a template from calligrapher.com and uploaded them to the site, after which I played around with the sizing of the letters until I got a nice looking legible font. I did the same thing for the in-world alphabet. Initially, the fictional written language of Parataba was supposed to be really tricky to decode and a fun little mystery to solve for the readers. But it was actually too complicated, so I forgot how to write in it after a while. The gist of it was that it was written using the Cyrillic keyboard, but phonetically. Specifically how you would phonetically spell English words in Romanian, but like with the Cyrillic alphabet. This was based on the fact that during the Soviet Union, Moldova's "my country, please get me out of here" alphabet was changed from the Latin one to the Cyrillic one, and so books were written in Romanian but with a different alphabet. These types of books are abundant in the back of my school's library, and it's a crazy experience reading them being so used to the Latin alphabet. That concept was cool and all, but I just went with an English alphabet reskin in the end. My main reason was that I made the letters too ornate the first time, being inspired by the Art Nouveau art style. The second time, I went for geometric lines and angles that are way more readable. You know, looking back, the original alphabet idea was really cool. but for quite a small aspect of the world, I still think it was wise to keep it simple. With my script in hand, my thumbnails at the ready, my references made and my fonts locked and loaded, I started doing the actual thing. But actually, never mind, because the prep work isn't done yet. I created an auto action for my layers. An auto action is a set of actions you can record and deploy instantly, just through a click. It was a good choice to make the auto action, because instead of manually going and creating each layer, naming it, assigning it a color, putting it in a group, whispering sweet nothings into its ears, for every single page I made, I could just do it once and click a button for each consecutive page. After working with the same layer organization system for 29 pages, I discovered some things to tweak and tailor specifically for my workflow. In Clip Studio, you can access auto actions through this menu with a play button or through the window tab. After drawing the sketch using different colors for each layer, it comes time for the lines. This next part might sound crazy, but I create frames using the Create Frame tool, after which I draw the bubbles by hand using a bigger brush size than my usual line art one. When drawing the actual lines, I try adding some emphasis to the zones that are in shadow, to make them look livelier. The next step is toning, something that I don't have much experience doing. Firstly, I fill in the solid colors, which is simple enough. For areas that were filled with black, I made sure to make the line art white, so the details are still clear. The most interesting part though is definitely halftoning. Halftones are a pattern made up of only black and white, but depending on the ratio between the two colors, they can appear as a wide array of grays. The pattern is usually made of a very small repeating shape. Personally, my favorites are the ellipse, the asterisk, and the line. Ellipses look great when they're really small, lines emulate hatching, which I quite like, and the asterisk looks great when it's huge and in color. Both my channel logo and my comic logo, specifically the colored versions, have the asterisk halftone overlaid on top. There are multiple ways you can go about using tones in Clip Studio. My most used method is by selecting the area I want to place the halftones in, and then pressing the halftone option in the selection menu. The advantage of these tones is that you can erase them without changing the shape of the pattern. Another way of getting tones is through the Layer Properties menu. This is a versatile and quick way of toning, but the drawback is that by erasing the tones, you lower the size of the shapes, which isn't always what you're looking for. All in all, toning is the last step in my process. Wow, I can't believe it! I finished a comic! Or like, the first chapter of it. A whole 29 pages! That's for sure more than 8. Now we just gotta upload it somewhere for the people to see. The obvious and easiest option was Webtoon, but I genuinely never used Webtoon on my own, so I had some reservations. So, I chose the very reasonable and rational next choice. Coding my own website! Yes, like with HTML and CSS. I had a bit of coding experience from a previous project, so I decided to just do it. The big advantage to this method is that I have full control of the customization of my site. The trade-off is that I need to learn how to code, but to be honest, it's really not that bad. HTML and CSS really aren't that hard to learn, and there is a vast amount of educational resources on the internet. Personally, I just googled how to do every step as I was building my site, and after a week, I was finished. Hooray! A very cool site for an even cooler comic. I still acknowledge that Webtoon is like the main place for comics, so I published it over there as well. But making a site really let me decide all aspects of the presentation. The only thing left was to share my comic with the world, and in just a few hours I was overwhelmed with the positive feedback. It really feels exceedingly validating for my work to be appreciated, especially since it took so many hours. Many people also reported issues with the site loading very slowly, which I fixed the next day by compressing down all of my images to at least under a megabyte. I didn't realize it would be a problem because it loaded very fast on my devices, but now I know. The site is hosted completely for free on NeoCities, by the way. A godsend, really. So, here we are! I've talked through every step of the way in making the debut chapter of my comic, which you can read at parataba.neocities.org or on Webtoon. Links in the description. What I hope most is that you've learned something from my mistakes and that you got at least a little bit more inspired to start making your own comic. I cannot recommend doing something like this enough. Like, sure, it's super time consuming and quite challenging, but it's also very gratifying. Keep in mind that I failed to make a comic 4 times in the past, and that's just counting the ones I wrote scripts for. But I never gave up creating. All those attempts were a step in the path to making Paradise Take Back, and the mistakes I'll make on this comic will make the next one even better. So, if you have an idea for a story in your head, I highly encourage you to make it a thing, regardless of how many tries it takes. Okay, now that the sincere ending is over, I have to make a joke or something. Oh my god, a callback maybe. Oh, God, I can't think in this heat.